My name is Charlotte, and in this DIMOCO One-on-One edition, I'm thrilled to be joined by my colleague and product marketing manager, Reka, and Sam, head of analytics and forecasting at Juniper Research. Juniper Research, a company probably very familiar to many viewers, specializes in providing high-quality data and fully researched analysis to manufacturers, financiers, developers, and service and content providers across the communication sector. They've had a very keen eye on the carrier billing sector for more than a decade and have recently published a much anticipated carrier billing study, which includes key takeaways and strategic recommendations, opportunities, challenges, and market forecasts for the period 2022 to 2026, and a competitor leaderboard in which we are, of course, are delighted to be highlighted in. Sam, Juniper estimates that in 2021, the total end user spend via carrier billing was approximately 54 billion US dollars worldwide, and is set to grow to a staggering 94.4 billion US dollars by 2026, which translates to an annual growth rate of 11.7%. Which segments will we see the largest potential growth rate within?
Yeah, very good question. Obviously, aside from digital content being the largest sector, looking at the growth of the new and emerging sectors, I think we need to pinpoint physical goods as an area that we expect to see growth. In fact, we expect to see the spend on physical goods via carrier billing to reach $13 billion by 2026. Now, this is going to be down to the increasing use of mobile devices for e-commerce activities and the increasingly efficient distribution networks of physical goods in some regions. That means that, the value of using carrier billing to these end users is ever increasing as a potential payment method. The other two areas we would like to highlight are gambling and ticketing. Firstly, the regulation for gambling, which has often been very, very stringent, is starting to relax in quite a lot of areas. And ticketing, as an example, is a very mobile industry. Obviously, carrier billing is very well suited to the ticketing markets, and we're seeing growth and in more and more interesting areas such as mobility as a service. That market is especially gaining traction, and again, carrier billing is very well suited to act as a popular payment method there.
So in fact, the gambling, or so-called iGaming sector, will rocket over the next 5 years, followed by the ticketing sector and the physical goods market. Which factors must be considered referring to the latter, the physical goods market, which is, of course, a fairly new industry concerning carrier billing, especially in Europe?
Yeah, in terms of physical goods, Korea and Japan are going to continue to be, well-established markets. Carrier billing has been used there for, a number of years, and is a, very popular payment option. But that's down to the favourable regulation that carrier billing has in those markets. It greatly increases the value of carrier billing to end users, and as a result, it's becoming used very extensively. In other regions, regulation is not so favourable. A good example of this is PSD2, which is very, very restrictive of the uptake of carrier billing. But one of the key elements that our report suggests should be looked at is the carrier fees for carrier billing. And when you compare that to other more, other banking payment methods, it's relatively high, which means that from an enterprise's point of view, the carrier billing is maybe not as popular or as favourable. But again, from an enterprise's point of view, again, it's about offering as many payment methods as possible.
Yeah, also the report from Juniper is in line with our experience and reconfirms our conclusions that DIMOCO is currently the only carrier billing vendor in Europe enabling the billing of physical, so non-digital goods in Europe. We have so found a way or a possibility to burst the chains of PSD2. We all know that since January 2018, mobile network operators are obliged to operate under the telecommunication exemption of the PSD2 regulation. entitling them to only process digital goods, ticketing, parking, and charities, but restricts them to extend the billing of goods and services outside the telecommunication exemption. The DIMOCO agent model enables MNOs to operate under a company's financial license, therefore enabling them to process payments for goods and services outside this exemption. MNOs such as Telekom Germany, Vodafone, O2, or A1 have already done so and are so-called DIMOCO agents, and they can so tap into the physical goods and gambling market. Furthermore, mobile network operators are starting to realize that pricing is key when addressing the physical goods market. We had tough discussions, but once the carriers have adapted their pricing models, we see that merchants are integrating carrier billing due to the advantages in comparison with other payment methods such as penetration or convenience.
The apparent growth of e-commerce and m-commerce and the increase of new payment options brings a shift in consumer behavior and payment habits. Stakeholders in the carrier billing ecosystem are seeing increased opportunities to drive carrier billing as a payment method, but as well face challenges. What would you say are some examples of key takeaways in your research, Sam?
I think one of the main takeaways for the carrier billing market is obviously carrier billing is going to operate as an alternative payment method, and this is very valuable in areas where financial inclusion or banking, the cards and wallets are underdeveloped. Such as there are many countries in Latin America that are in this situation. However, looking at the wider global market, you still need to view carrier billing as an area that can play a role in countries with high penetration of bank cards. It's all about offering a choice of payment methods to the end user and making sure that the user is able to pay in whichever means they see most fit. So customer experience is key, and this is most notable in areas where transactions need to be made quickly or in a hurry, and carrier billing fits the bill for that perfectly well. And we were talking about high growth markets earlier, and that's no more true than in places like mobility as a service, where the idea of having an easy to use payment method that you use often, regularly, but maybe not for the same payment or amount every single time is ideal. So mobility as a service is this idea or a model whereby you pay once to use multiple modes of transport in a single journey. That journey can obviously change very, very rapidly or on a very consistent basis, which means that the idea of having carrier billing, which is not just used for constantly payment values that are constantly the same, carrier billing fits the bill very, very well in that market.
Mm-hmm. Juniper also discusses an array of topics in the report, for example, the effect that the rollout of 5G networks on cloud gaming and OTT services had, subscription bundling of music and game services, or markets with highly and underbanked population and with growing access to the internet, rising engagement with smartphones, and growing acceptance of digital payment methods, what these mean in these. But also the challenges that need to be tackled and the effect mobile wallets have had on carrier billing, for example. Reka, I think you've had quite a deep dive into the report. What are your key takeaways and strategic recommendations you find especially interesting in the report?
Yes, I mean, Juniper expresses really a couple of key recommendations for carriers, merchants, and carrier billing providers like DIMOCO. For me, a very important one is that everybody in the chain should look at new ways of working together to solidify partnerships, because a more collaborative approach between carriers and merchants offers the potential to achieve greater economies of scale. For example, to drive the success of subscription bundling, a co-marketing between carriers and merchants by putting their marketing budget together may be the way forward. Also for carrier billing providers, the end game is pretty clear. It is a necessity to go beyond being merely a payment provider and become a real enabler for merchants and carriers to adjust to the new digital economy. Another advice is in regards to leverage advantages. For example, carrier needs to leverage the marketing advantages they already hold. They have the network, they have the technical capacity, they are a well-known brand, and they have therefore a very trustful relation with their customers. So they are really in a prime position to get products and services in front of their customers and so drive the use of carrier billing further. They simply have firstly to tell and then to sell their customers how and why end users should use their very own payment method. Even though I could go on because there are a lot more very good recommendations mentioned in the report, I really want to focus on the cost factor. Because simply said, the adoption of carrier billing by merchant depends very strongly on the costs. In order to make carrier billing more competitive to cards, wallets like PayPal, MNOs really have to start accepting smaller fees on transactions. Because when operating at scale, especially in the new verticals like physical goods, mobility services, or iGaming, exactly the verticals with the biggest growth rate in the upcoming years, even fractions of percentages can have a significant impact on whether carrier billing is adopted by merchants or not. So therefore, a better debt handling or AI-powered credit scoring could not only lead to a better understanding of customer payment behavior, but it could also reduce the necessity for these high fees.
Well, thank you, Sam, for joining us at DIMOCO today and providing these very interesting facts concerning your carrier billing report. Viewers who are interested in more details of purchasing the report can, of course, contact your team at info@juniperresearch.com. And we at DIMOCO remain, of course, the trusted partner we are for mobile network operators and merchants alike. And together, we will drive new revenues with carrier billing.